episode of the Andre the Beast Cooking Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest. We're going to talk with a beautiful young lady, Alenna Trusik. I believe I pronounced that right. And let me tell you where we're about to go with this story. Let me refer this attorney, Alenna Trusik. Let me give her her dues because she's definitely got that beast mindset. But let me tell you where we're about to go with this story. Imagine, if you will, going through trauma. I'm not going to give her whole story. Being an overachiever, I won't use the word imposter syndrome, but I would go here with this. Trying to live up to probably everybody else's expectations while still dealing with abuse. Then, check this out, a single mom. And you realize later down in life, the only thing that you have to really carve your new career is a laptop and a cell phone. And you take those two instruments, reshape your life, and when you talk about that beast mindset, this is a must. Let's welcome to the show, Alenna. What's up, baby girl?
Hi, good morning. Glad to be here.
Okay, I'm gonna do 10 questions in 30 minutes.
All
But
right.
before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are before we get into this beautiful story.
Well, my name is Alenna Trusik. I am a Florida certified attorney practicing in marital and family law. And I have done that for the past 22 plus years. And I am also now a somatic practitioner who helps women deal with emotions and traumas in their past to help them become more successful in their own lives. So I'm doing a couple of things right now.
That's a very interesting word. You said somatic what now?
A somatic practitioner, essentially meaning you carry your past trauma in your body. It's not just up here in your head. And you can deal with all of those traumas in talk therapy for years, and you may or may not completely deal with it. So somatic practice is getting it out of the body as well. So it's what healed me and
Mhm.
allowed me to move further into the things I want to do. And so I share that with other men and women now in hopes that they'll be healed as well.
Take the viewers down. You mentioned trauma, and we all have it, and it shows its face in different degrees. But I'm glad that you are focusing on understanding that it's deeper, is deeply woven into your existence. What was deeply woven into your existence as a child to where you get to where you are now? You know, were you cool with your mom and dad, your family? What was your life like? Because when you're in Florida, you know, sunshine, palm trees, all that good stuff, you know?
Well, I'm in northern Florida, so it's really kind of Georgia, if you can't tell by my accent. I'm lucky. I had a set of wonderful parents. And I think without that, my life would be very different today. Grew up in a very rural area. As a matter of fact, my high school graduating class had 28 people. And of those 28 people, I started kindergarten with all of them. So just super small. Um, as a very young child, I had extended family member who sexually abused me from 4 to the age of 12. So that had a tremendous effect on me. Most of it I didn't remember. It, you know, I didn't remember it till I was in my 40s. But what it did for me, looking back at it now, I can see the benefit of what happened because it made me an overachiever. Typically people go one of two ways. You can go into drug addiction or other ways of running away from these things that hurt you, or you become a perfectionist, a high achiever, somebody who is trying to prove to everyone else that you're valuable because what you don't feel inside is that you're worthy. I never felt that I was smart or so I was constantly trying to get more letters behind my name or more certificates or winning cases in court to make myself feel like I was someone until that no longer worked for me.
when you talk about the age bracket from 4 to 12,
Mm.
seems like something along that timeline would have put you in the situations to start asking questions about what was actually taking place. Did that even happen, or were you already, without knowing, already so far gone into uh, the closet, keeping it there and not recognizing it?
It because it started so early. It it was my very first memory. We all have our first memory. My very first memory is of being sexually abused. And because it happened so young, I never knew anything different. I never knew safety. I just knew when people talked about sex at school, I thought, well, I already know about that. But I was so separated from it that it was like it wasn't real. It's almost like, well, it just is something that happened. So I never connected the dots until I started having problems in my 40s. It,
That's crazy. I mean, like, it seems like you've been married before, correct?
I have.
And none of that surfaced at that point in your life. No, let me put it like this:
Mhm.
there wasn't even any triggers while you was dealing with marriage that something ain't right. Because usually, if the trauma is, and I'm not a therapist nor a lawyer, so I'm just spinning off my head here. But I would think that somewhere along life's journey, some flags, some red things, some things was coming up that maybe, yeah, you didn't understand then, but made you question something just ain't right here.
It didn't. I had my misfunctions and that's probably why there was a demise to my marriage, because intimacy was something that it didn't feel right to me. There was always the feeling of this person's going to leave me, so I'm going to get him before he gets me, kind of. So my head wasn't right, but I didn't know anything different. So you don't really, those dots don't connect for you. Looking back now after therapy and all the things I've done, I can see exactly how it affected me and why I was doing the behaviors that I did. At the time, no. I did remember some of it, and I do recall telling my husband at the time about it, but I rattled it off like it was my grocery list. I got gas, I got groceries, I was sexually abused. Da, 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 da. It had no connection, no feeling for me. It was just something that happened that I thought had no effect on me.
You mentioned your husband, and I'm trying to take the viewers into a deeper thing here. Your experience isn't somebody else's experiences.
Hmm.
You don't know how they're going to react to the situation. By you not having full clarity on what happened, you're almost like giving a hypothesis on based on different things that did happen to you, but they're not clear. How was his reaction to this, and how did that really change your behavior, or did it make it worse? Was he not willing to understand? Because this is where I'm going with this, and you're an attorney, so you would know where I'm going. If he's not willing to see the deeper issue of you, and you really don't know what you're dealing with, isn't this like a spin cycle that can spin out of control? And
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
what happened with your marriage, and you're devouring, not devouring, you are disclosing that information to him. How did that change?
Well, and I didn't, this information didn't come to me until we had been separated, divorced for many years. He and I are wonderful friends. So I'm super lucky in that regard too. In telling him now, we have healed a whole lot of wounds that we had through our divorce and marriage, because now it makes sense why I would have felt the way I did, behaved the way I did, never thought I was, because it was hard for him to look at me and understand why I thought I was unattractive or I was unlovable or I wasn't perfect. So there just all kinds of self-esteem issues that outwardly looking in, no one would ever understand why I had. So it has healed a lot of wounds since then. Yes. But at the time, neither of us understood what the drivers were.
The perpetrator in question, without giving a name, I take it somebody that you knew pretty
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Did Now that you're healed, or you're going through heal? Because I don't think you really heal. I think you go to a point to where you recognize and you move on.
Mhm.
So the question here is, the person that did it, now that you being an attorney, I'm pretty sure you did your research a little bit
Oh, yeah.
on what his behavior pattern was the same issues happening to him? Because we hear this all the time, that this happened to this person, and it continues going like a spiral.
Yes. And so for me, there's no animosity, there's no anger, there's no anything toward that person at this point because I completely understand that person was hurt too. Um, and I'm going to say this, and probably a lot of people aren't going to understand it, but I hold no grudge to that person at this juncture in my life. I don't want to be around them, obviously, but there's nothing coming from me but between what's between me and my maker, and that is this horrible act that happened to me turned me into, it gave me a purpose that I cannot describe. It gave me a reason to deep desire to turn around and help the other people coming up behind me who are still in the fire and maybe don't understand how to get themselves out of it. So out of this horrible situation has come something very, very beautiful. And so I see it as something I wouldn't go through it again, but I wouldn't change it because it has given me just this unexpected purpose that is the reason I'm here today. I love to talk about it. I love to spread the word. I just love to help people because I have healed. I'm still on that healing journey. And when you can be okay enough to turn around and you walk out of the fire and you turn around and you go back in for the people who are still there, I think in a way that what a beautiful thing.
Let's go here. You were a single mother going through a lot of this stuff. What was that like for you?
It was very, very hard. I was a teenage mom, so my undergraduate years were very difficult. There were times I took my daughter with me to class as an 18, 19-year old with a toddler and her coloring book at the time, because this was back in the 90s. It was very difficult. And, you know, it's not something I recommend to anybody, but I also, at the time, I just did what I had to do because I knew what I wanted and I knew I was going to get there and I knew there was nothing going to stop me from getting it. So looking back, I think, well, I'm not really sure how I accomplished that. But at the time, it was just, I've got my goal and that's what I want. So let's figure it out.
Getting Having a child at such a young age, I remember as a school teacher, kindergarten through eighth grade, there was a young girl. I think she's probably in like the seventh grade, now maybe the sixth or seventh. And I remember she just stood out, and she was pregnant. And I'm thinking to myself, what must be going through that child's mind with the peer pressure, with
Mhm.
kids who don't understand intimacy, or aka sex, because we used to have to bust them, make sure they didn't go into the bathrooms and stuff together. But what was that like for you? You said you had close knit family. How did they react to the pregnancy? How did you keep your focus knowing on what you want to do, and how instrumental were they about keeping you focused, even though they don't know you went through what you went through? Did I get that right?
Right. I did not, because I didn't know. I mean, I didn't remember a lot of this stuff. So I didn't tell my parents until I was 46. I'm 53 now. So it's only been a few years ago that they found out. Um, My parents were instrumental because my dad was military and was always, from the time I was little, you can be anything you want to be. And you just get up and do it. Just do it. And my mother was stay-at-home mom, so just super great support system that I had. So I was scared to death to tell, coming from a small town, to tell them. They took it the best way you possibly could take news like that. And then they helped provide me with a place to live. My mother watched my daughter for me for free when I was driving back and forth to class and working and all of those things. So they were, without them, I think I would not have been able to do what I've done. I certainly wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I have.
Did you always want to be an attorney at law?
I did. Um, from the time I must have been probably 8 or 9, and I told my father then, that's what, because my mother told me, I said, "I'm gonna have a maid when I grow up." And my mom said, "Well, you better marry a rich man." And even at that young age, I told her, "I'm not gonna marry anybody. I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna be an attorney." I mean, I was that kind of hard-headed child.
Yeah.
So it's something I always knew I wanted to do. Yeah.
So, who was the inspiration to help navigate you? Because you said something that a lot of individuals at that age, especially women in the 90s, we've seen a shift change in women's movement around that time. But who were some of your role models that made you decide this is what I want to be? Because there wasn't a lot of female lawyers on television. Let's get real. Not
Mm-mm.
like they have a whole bunch of them in his office.
The interesting thing is I didn't have one. Here's what did it. I did not like to be told I couldn't do what boys could do. So I was adamant that I was not going to be bested by a boy. And if a boy could do it, then I could do it. That was literally my reasoning in my head. I was so hard-headed about it. If a guy can do it, I can do it. And I will show them. But that goes back also to the trauma of, I need to show people I'm good enough. But it had that beautiful effect of, oh no, you're not going to tell me what I, someone asked me one time, for instance, or said, "Oh, so you're going to be a secretary when you grow up." And this is in the 70s. And I said, "I'm not going to be a secretary. I'm going to have a secretary." So even at that age, my little head was already just thinking out loud. So I don't know where it came from. I really don't. I just had that feeling in my heart of that's what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Knowing that you still didn't recognize the internal uh, um, things that was going on inside your body, the trauma aspect. What were the difficult moments outside of really having a child? Because you're still, let me put it a different way. You didn't recognize the full effect until you was in your 40s. So you're going to school. What were some of the obstacles that you was really trying to overcome that now that you look at what you have that you look and go, wow, if I had recognized that shit earlier, no telling what the shit would have been like.
Right. At in my younger years, I think I was just so driven to become somebody that the hurdles I faced were really more financial than anything. In a belief, for a long time, I thought I'm not smart enough to go to law school. I'll never have the money to do that, until someone I worked with went to law school. And I thought, oh, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And so then, I'm studying on my lunch breaks for my LSAT and that kind of thing. The hurdles really started after I had my second daughter and I developed postpartum depression. And that is where all the trauma started to show up. And that was during my marriage. Um, still not connecting the dots of where it came from. So I really went off the deep end. I became suicidal, and that still wasn't a wake up call.
Mm.
Um, checked my checked myself in for mental health, because I that's where I was. Um, and no one ever asked me why I was there, and I didn't know. So they medicated me. I went back straight out into work and kept going, working as a single mom in a high stress job, high stakes, that kind of thing. So that's where the problem started to show up. I had developed depression, anxiety. I started having panic attacks. I stopped sleeping. Eventually, I had gut issues. I had every illness you could possibly imagine. Um, it started rearing its ugly head in my body, um, illness wise. And when I finally crashed and burned, meaning my body said, "We ain't going anymore. You can sit your ass down and you're going to take some rest," is when I really started to understand there's a connection between what happened to me and what's happening now. And it's just showing up in a different way.
I am proud of you that you came out of this. So let me say that first off. I can tell with your emotions and the lump that's there that is still there and talking about it still hurts. So I thank you for coming on and being so transparent and using your story to amplify the attention of other people, whether it be male or female or children, young teenagers. So let me go here with this. Um, I just think it's crazy that you checked yourself in. Not crazy, crazy, but I'm talking about the aftermath.
Mhm.
That there wasn't qualified people there to give you a proper assessment. It's almost like one who flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Right.
Now that you're an attorney in family law, and you are awakening, so to speak, how do you take that transition and put yourself in somebody else's shoes who walks in there and may have gotten the same treatment as you? Because I'm pretty sure the policies haven't changed because you're not that old. So how does that make you feel? And what your program now and what you're teaching, how does that affect somebody that may have to go into there, and what should they ask for? How should they ask certain questions? Because you don't want to go in there and get medicated and then all of a sudden you're, oh, and then you're going back to work. Because being an attorney, you guys have one of the highest suicidal rates.
Yes. Um, you know, this was back in 2007. It happened to me twice, 2007 and then again in 2010. Um, I look back at it and go, why weren't these questions asked of me? Why didn't anyone ever ask? But I
Yeah.
think at the time, because now that's been 20 years, I think at the time it was, and it wasn't something you talked about. 20 years ago, you didn't openly say, I'm depressed. No one knew really what it was. It's not talked about the way it is now. And I certainly, as a practicing attorney, wasn't going to tell anyone, "Hey, look, I'm writing my will on purpose here." Um, so I didn't say anything to anyone. But I honestly do not know how I could have been in the hospital for 5 days on a suicide watch, and no one ever asked me why I'm there. It was assumed it was stress from
Mhm.
from high stress job, and that does play into it. But to medicate me and then put me I come out of the hospital on a Friday and I'm back in the same situation on Monday. It, that it just it was made an impossible situation for me to actually heal.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know how that occurred. The reason I do what I do today and openly talk about it is because I want people to recognize it's okay. They're not alone. You don't have to keep it a secret. It's not a bad thing. You don't have to stay in hiding. I do what I do and I'm open about it because other people need to feel okay with not being okay.
I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna just touch on this so the viewers can clearly understand what was at stake here. I could be wrong. You can correct me. You are responsible for the outcome of people's cases.
Mhm.
Being open like you do, how does that affect your career path? Because a lot of people, let me say this right way. Now, I'm going to say a lot of people. People have a tendency to judge based on what's in front of them.
Mhm.
So I call it circumstantial evidence, but they refuse to go deeper in the layer. Why did you feel the need to really come out on the platform, share your story, knowing that it could be possible that you go in front of a disciplinary commission, review board, and say, you know what, you're open, we appreciate it, but you may not be competent enough to handle somebody's case. How do you keep that part of your life away from what you went to school that you know how to do?
I don't. And I made the decision. And contrary to most advice anybody would give, I made a conscious choice to take that risk because it matters to me that people live. It 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 hasn't affected my business,
Mhm.
um, and this is 20 years ago, so it's not going to affect my disciplinary action or anything like that. But if a potential client has a problem with it, I'm not the attorney for them. That's
Right.
as simple as that. I don't need that kind of stuff coming at me. What
Mhm.
it has done for me is made me much more attuned to my clients who are going through very difficult circumstances, and to be able to say, I've been there. I know exactly how you feel. You
Mhm.
feel like shit, and that's okay. It gets better, but let's talk about how, so I can add part of that to the conversation. But the reason I choose to do this is because it's so important to me. Because I would much rather have people hear my words and say, she made it out, there's hope, then
Mhm.
I would practice law any day of the week. So for me, this is more important than that. And I
Wow.
think, yeah, I think they can coexist, but if they can't, I've made that choice.
Wow. I'm gonna ask my question. Another question. What internal anchor kept you going while working three jobs, commuting to college as a teenage mom?
I I just had an internal drive of this is what I want. And I don't know. I just have always had that. As long as I can see where I want to go, I can see the end result. I'll do what I have to do to get there, even if that means putting myself in three jobs at once and taking care of a toddler and commuting an hour. And there's just over an hour each way, and there's a time change. So I would go from Central Time to Eastern Time. So to be in class at 8 a.m. here, that's 7 my time with an hour and a half drive, and having to take my baby to my parents, drop her off. It was not easy, but you I just didn't think about the difficulty of it. I just thought about this is what I have to do to get to my goal, and I just did it. Um,
There
I,
was never any at that age. I know a lot of individuals find that hard to believe that your state of mind was that driven. But let's get real. I'm a beast. There's moments that even I break. You know what I mean? So at that age, were there ever moments that you had to really go back and really evaluate and say, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I want to do it, but maybe I need to restructure and get rid of this or get rid of this.
no, because I didn't have a choice. It was, if I had choices, I might have thought about those types of things. But for me, living in a very small rural community with no job opportunities in the area, unless you wanted to be a school teacher, and those were hard to come by because it was so small, there were no other choices. So if I wanted a job that could support myself and my child, I had to get that degree. And I couldn't get the degree without also having money. So I set these jobs up where they were all occurring at different times and not overlapping. And I was on academic scholarship, so I still had to have maintain a good GPA. So it was just get the job done. That's kind of how I'm built. So I've been that way as long as I can remember.
I like that. It's something good. All right, my next question. How did you turn $500, a used laptop, and a broken phone into a seven-figure practice?
Oh, that's a good story. I I had been a public defender, and I had done that for about 5 years and got very I just got tired of doing criminal defense work and I wanted to do something different. But that was also during the time I was hospitalized. And so I was looking for a part-time job, something I could do three-quarter time, and I couldn't find it. And I had lived off of my savings until I had nothing left. My ex-husband and I were in the midst of a divorce, so the money just wasn't there. So I had $2,500 in the bank. I took 500 of it, and a friend of mine had an office space that I could rent. And he said, I said, how much do you want for it? He said, $500. I took that $500 and gave it to him. And I had a laptop and my cell phone, and that's it. I knew nothing about running a law practice. I knew nothing about family law at all. I, I just, it's kind of like having the baby and going to college. I just did it. And he's a good friend of mine, and he was kind enough to say, you can bum off my Wi-Fi for a little while. You need an office phone. So he kind of walked me through some of that. And then because he did criminal law, they're often attached to family cases. He would give me the family cases. And so as they came in, I learned as I went, and studied, got as much certification in family law as I could. And I got very good at it. And then the clients started coming, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew.
That is crazy. I tell people, you never know what possibilities you have if you just walk through that door,
Mhm.
not be intimidated by the impossible and make it possible mindset. Let me go ahead with this next question. Hmm, I don't even know if I'm going to ask you this, but I'm going to ask it. How did you find courage to walk away from a 22-year law career um, against everybody's advice?
The same way I've done everything else in my life. This became so important to me that well, let me back up. I got so burned out because I am an overachiever and I am a perfectionist. All of those things caused by early childhood trauma, that I got very, very sick. I weighed 98 pounds. I mean, my hair fell out. So I had a choice. Either I keep going like this and you end up dying, or I take my retirement and my savings and I use it to live on and give myself some breathing room. So I made a decision to take a year off and live off my savings and retirement. And during that year, I did so much healing that it blew my own mind. And as I set myself up to go back to work, I thought, there's more to life than this. There is more to life than this. And I want to have a bigger impact. I want to touch as many people as I possibly can. I still do practice law, but my focus is on helping people. My heart wants to touch as many people as God will possibly let me touch on this earth. Just anyone who needs to hear the story or who would be affected by it. That's what I want.
My next question, talking about your health, let's go here. What was your exact breaking point when you realized achievement wasn't was making you sick?
The Probably the last 2 years before I took a year off. So let's see, I took my year off at the end of 2024. Um, the last 2 years before that, it was just nonstop illness. I would go to the hospital, be back in my office in the morning, spend an evening at the hospital, right back in my office. But it began to affect my ability to think on the spot, to be sharp. And I started having panic attacks before court. And I thought, this something's not right. I didn't know quite what. I just knew something wasn't right. And when I took time away from work, which everyone thought was, don't do that, this is your life savings, I really had to sit with that a lot, going, I could spend my life savings and then I have nothing. Now, then what? And someone said to me, those savings won't do you any good if you're dead. And I thought that's a very good point. So against everyone's advice, I took that time off, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
Um, Two points about that. The first part, you gambled on yourself. And whoever gave you that advice, I tell people that all the time. What does savings got to do if you're dead?
Hmm.
You know, and more importantly, how do you expect anyone to gamble on your success if you're afraid to gamble on your success?
Correct.
Let me go over with this next question. Hmm. How has your definition of success shift from your long days to your current mission?
Hmm. That's a great question. I don't know that.
I sound like a lawyer down the way I'm answering these questions. Should we need to call for recess?
I right now, the my definition of success is, I keep getting messages from people, both men and women, saying, thank you for saying that. Thank you for being brave enough to speak out, because I'm going through the same thing. That is my definition of success right now. Those messages are what keeps me going. Um, I have plans to turn this sort of into a business too, and make something, a nonprofit or something out of it. I have big plans for it. But for right now, it is just the feedback that I'm getting, and it's overwhelming. I started my Instagram page in January, not exactly knowing what I wanted to do with it, not knowing a single thing about content creation. I was hardly on social media. And I think it's almost at 70,000 now, people. And I have almost, I think, 35 on Facebook and 10 on TikTok, just building, because I've struck a nerve that there are other people who feel this way, who have experienced this, who are going, I identify with that. And that's what I want. That's the thing that lights my fire. That's the thing that makes me happy.
Hmm, okay. Now, the next question. How did you untangle your early trauma from your adult actions without letting it define you?
There's a lot of forgiveness involved in that. Um, it is not an easy process to go back through PTSD counseling and have to relive things and attach emotions to them, and then recognize, oh boy, I've hurt other people because I wasn't straight. Um, so there's a ton of forgiveness required of yourself. Um, Not just the people who hurt you, but the things that you did, the guilt, the shame, all of those things that you carry. And letting go of the past and going, what, it did affect me, it did shape me, but guess what, look where I am today, look the good that came out of it, and focus on that piece of it, versus remaining in the past, going, I did this, I did hurt that person, I wasn't nice, or any of those kinds of things. You just have to let go of that and face forward and go, what can I do with this? How do I make this into something that is beautiful?
Okay, the next question. How did you reach a place of forgiveness after enduring such a deep injustice?
A lot of tears, a lot of tears. Um, I did counseling. I did, I think, eight years total. Um, 5 of that was in talk counseling. The last 3 of it was hypnotherapy, and then I also did uh, psychedelic therapy, and that was the biggest change because it helps you with a mind shift, a perspective of being able to see it from 65,000 feet instead of from right here, what's in front of me. You can see the bigger picture. And once you see the bigger picture and you can see why they would have behaved the way they did, forgiveness automatically came for me. It automatically flowed out of that.
Wow. The next question. How do you protect your own energy while pulling others out of their personal fires?
That's another great question. That's hard for me. And that is something I am currently working on because I do so much of my heart goes into feeling empathy and sympathy for people that I easily get pulled into it and wanting to do that. So that is a work in progress for me. That also was a problem for me in practicing law because I would get so involved with my clients and caring about their cases and caring about their outcome, caring about their kids that so much of my energy was there. I had nothing left to give to myself. And that's also why I got sick.
Mhm.
So I don't want to make that same mistake twice. So it's a work in progress for sure.
Okay, the next question, we're almost done. What convinced you that the somatic movement and the nervous system regulation were the true keys to deep healing?
Because they were the keys for me. So I don't necessarily believe it's the same for every person. I think everybody's different. Different healing modalities help different people. But for me, it was the thing that got me over the hump. I had been in talk therapy, I had done all these other things. I had no idea that these things could be held in the tissues of the body. So when I started that work, it was a very quick healing curve. So what I accomplished in 6 months of that was equal to what I had accomplished in years of the other therapy. So I I wasn't aware of it. So my goal is simply to spread the word and to help people use it as part of a bigger healing. It's a tool to use. It's not necessarily the tool. It is a tool. And because it works so well for me and it's something I enjoy, that's kind of my shtick. Just know that it can be held in your body and you can release a lot of this stuff as you work through it and you can be happy again.
My last question. What is the very first truth you handed someone who believed it is too late for them to heal?
What is it? I didn't hear the first part of that.
Okay, I'll say it again. What is the very first truth you handed someone who believed it is too late for them to heal?
Mm, well, it's never too late. I mean, my goodness, I'm 53 and healing just occurred for me. And the damage was done at 4. So I'm walking proof that there's always hope. There is literally always hope. I was ready to die at 2 different points in my life because I thought I don't want to be here anymore. My life is not valuable. My family will be better off without me. And today that could not be further from the truth. Today, I am happy. I'm healthy. I'm a great weight. My hair has grown back, and I am overwhelmed with a joy for living that comes out of me each and every day. And it's contagious. So for me, there's just I I'm an example. It's never too late. Never too late unless you're dead.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and share such a beautiful beast mindset story, being so transparent. Before we leave, how can the viewers reach out to you and know more about what you're doing as well as your law firm?
I You can find me on all of my socials. It's under The Woman Reclaimed, and it's named that obviously because that's how I feel. I reclaim myself, my life, and I want to help others do that. Or you can search for me just by my name, Alenna Trusik, and it's Trusik Law Firm is the firm that I have.
Alenna, once again, thank you for taking time to come on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you subscribe, share, click that button. All it takes is one click to make a difference in your life or change somebody else's. Like always, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre, the Beast, Great Show.